All right. Oh, wow. Look at all those things I didn't click away from. Welcome, everyone, to part 2 of today's Couch Potato Diary, looking at the world of combat sports. And what a weekend it was, as the WWE had an unbelievable night at Elimination Chamber. And now the road to WrestleMania is paved with a lot of question marks that I can't wait to answer. AEW trying to get some of that spotlight back as Revolution goes this weekend. Plus, a very fascinating fight went down in the world of boxing, and we get ready for a bit of an interesting one in the world of the UFC as we get ready for UFC 313 this weekend. So yes, hello again to Toxic in the chat as we just kind of reset things there on the stream. If you are listening in podcast form or watching on YouTube, first of all, thank you. Secondly, you can get these early over at twitch.tv/primetimepk or over kick.com/primetimepk as well. Gonna start doing some live streams in April on YouTube and just kind of build some things out that way. But we are presented by Sea of Dead. Check out Sea of Dead 403 for that great Calgary swag. For those in the live stream, you have just heard all of this, but we'll throw some links in the chat one more time. Check out the Sea of Dead website there, seaofdead403.ca for that awesome Calgary swag. And Swift Energy. Check out swiftenergy.gg and use the code PKPrimetime for that 25% off. So there are the links in the chat for that, both in Twitch and in Kick. Deeds, the last couple of chats that you have sent have just come up stars on my end. So I don't know if something has happened or what's going on, but hopefully everything is all right there and the chat's not just being a little bit screwy with me. So let's begin with the world of professional wrestling, as the WWE had the internet all abuzz this weekend with Elimination Chamber, and we are still buzzing about it. So let's talk about it, shall we? So, WWE Elimination Chamber. I'm still buzzing. I still can't believe what we saw this weekend, as John Cena is a bad guy. And not a bad guy in a, boo, you only have 5 moves, we hate you as a wrestling community, boo. He's a bad guy in a, he kicked our favorite champion right in the Cody Rhodeses. And now we hate you, John Cena. So, absolutely buzzing. Oh, Deeds, I didn't know that I had it set that you couldn't send links here. So, if you want me to be seeing some stuff, just send them my way, DM me on X or social media platform of choice, and I will see them, and maybe we can chat about them as we go along here. But Elimination Chamber, just a wildly exciting night. Well, tell the bot to come to your channel, and the last was Swift Energy link in the chat. Oh, okay. Yeah, weird. Yeah, like like I'm seeing what Toxic is sending. I'm not seeing what Deeds is sending right now. Although I have seen these last two, so maybe things have just been worked out a little bit. Either way, yes, still buzzing after Elimination Chamber this weekend, and like just basically every like 45 minutes, you think of a new possibility of what they could do with John Cena and The Rock. Like where is this going initially? Where is this going? Like for right now, what are we going to do with this? Obviously, we're on a road to WrestleMania. And so as we do kind of like, this is a Elimination Chamber reaction plus a Raw preview going into it tonight. But I'm fascinated to see where they go with it tonight. WWE has a little bit lately. They'll do a big thing, and then we won't get an explanation for a few weeks, and then we kind of just don't get one at all, which is kind of what happened with like the New Day. Like they turned on Big E, and we had this big thing, and then the follow-up was we're just going to get booed a lot, and then it just kind of took some of that momentum away. So I want a really strong follow-up with this one tonight, and I am hoping that we get that on Monday Night Raw. But yeah, like just where does this all lead to, and where does this all go with John Cena and The Rock? Is this a all the way to December thing? Is this a partway to December thing, and then he realizes the error of his ways, and some poor sick kid is, how could you? Or something along those lines. Like where does this ride get off, and where is it taking us? I just, everything of it is so great. And then, because the internet is nuts, and because WWE, it does feel like right now, everything that these guys do is with intention. But you are seeing, like, The Rock came out that one time and he held up the 3 fingers that he did, right? And I mean, maybe that's John Cena, but like there was that. And then on Saturday when he does the throat slash thing, he ends it with the 2. And so does that mean we're getting a third? You know, like that we were at 3 and now 2, and now do we get one more? And I can't imagine that one more is Travis Scott, who, again, as we talked about in the instant reaction pod, just slapped the shit out of Cody on that show, Elimination Chamber. But I still think there might be one more. And like this is such an amazing spot if you want to put an extra guy. Kind of feels like this would be a great spot for a Jacob Fatu, wouldn't it? Like, you would then lump in another story with that. Now, I don't know if, like, it feels like the people are getting behind Jacob Fatu in a real way. And getting, like, there's a lot of, like, babyface love for that guy. And so maybe you kill that, bringing him on with Cena and Rock, or maybe you just add a little bit more likability to that. So maybe the other direction with that is Solo. And then he has turned on Jacob Fatu, and he has now gone with The Rock, and he's kind of the muscle of that group, and gets to kind of build back up into a potential leader again, because it was very clear that there was just too much too soon for him. But either way, this would be a great spot for a young performer to come into that situation. And another thing that I can't get out of my head, because again, everything about this has been done with purpose and for a reason, right? And that's what I was trying to tell you guys around the Netflix thing when he was being real nice to Cody Rhodes and we're drinking tequila and all these things. And, oh, it's killed the angle. It's like, no, he is being so disingenuinely nice that there is something afoot in this. I have to feel like that appearance on NXT was more than just The Rock is here, and so let's put him on NXT. He has a face-to-face with Ethan Page. Now, if we're expecting a third man, Hulk Hogan this would not be. But Ethan, like, this would be a good spot for an NXT call-up to kind of pop in there a little bit, right? And have Ethan Page. Honestly, you could do both of them. And we've talked a bit about how the NXT main roster situation, or main event situation on the men's side isn't awesome. And so I am now suggesting taking 2 guys away from that, which is less than ideal. But, I mean, that's what they're for, right? So you could have an Ethan Page come up and join as an extra guy with the Rock and Cena and give kind of that rub to another developing character. Ethan Page, I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think he could fit in with something along those lines, although he would definitely be the, like, one of these things is not like the other. But anyone else who you put in that spot, aside from, like, fucking Hulk Hogan, is going to feel a little bit kind of less than. But I think this would be a good spot, and he has that face-to-face with him, and so maybe there is something where Ethan Page comes in, or you bring in a couple of guys from an NXT and have them come in, and Cody, as kind of his response, brings in a Ricky Starks, who is his guy, and he is kind of believing in that sort of a thing. But also, another thing that you kind of think of with this whole situation, and again, we're just spitballing here. If you were watching earlier, you know that the stuff that makes the train stay on the tracks up top forgot to take today. So we are side questing the hell out of the show. But someone else put out on social media, like, Cody got just actually whipped on this show. No one came out. Not one person came out to help him out. And so this still ties in with the Cody angle of, I don't have any friends. Like, all these people say they're my friend, but then I give a title opportunity to Kevin Owens, and it turns into a blood feud leading up to the Royal Rumble to kind of finish out the winter. CM Punk keeps saying that he's got my back, but now, like, 2 of his arch rivals are attacking me, and Travis Scott, and they don't, you don't come out to help me. So I am all alone. So I need to bring my own friends in. And he brings in a Ricky Starks and brings a couple of other younger guys into the fold to try to build up some of those guys. So I do wonder, like, where is this going? And then where is the counterpunch coming from all of it? Hadid saying there was a post on X where Cody called it disgusting, both of you. But now I can't find it. Interesting. So, yeah, like, I'm wondering where the Cody counterpunch is coming from. And then again, the side quests off of this. CM Punk obviously greatly affected by this, right? Because again, he has a thing with John Cena and he has a thing with The Rock. Roman Reigns obviously there's a little bit going on there with Roman and The Rock. So how do they tie in to this whole situation? So still so many questions. And I can't wait to see what some of the answers are with this whole thing. Like, I am so invested in all of this now. And then the last one for me is where's the end game with this whole thing? Where does this all end up going? Because this is the last Mania for this one. Unless part of the heel turn for John Cena is like, yeah, I said I was going to leave, but I'm not going anywhere. You guys, it would be like a you don't deserve it, but it would be weird to kind of make it work that way. But it's like, no, I got all this power now. I'm not giving all this up. Are you kidding me? And so he sticks around longer. But you wonder if, like, partway through the year, there's a bit of a clashing, and this ends with the December pay-per-view. That would be John Cena's last. He and The Rock have a face-off, and that's John Cena's final farewell. But you have to think that at some point, like, a John Cena, Randy Orton thing, with Randy being the babyface and John Cena being the heel, would be of great interest to all of us. And again, one of the things we brought up on the Instant Reaction show is Mania's 2 nights. And they did this last year where The Rock got in the ring on night 1. Do we get a Rock Cena tag team on night 1? And who then would be Cody's partner? I recklessly speculated maybe The Rock, or maybe Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out and does that thing. Apparently Stone Cold just had knee replacement, which would make it difficult to do the wrestling thing. But I mean, who's to say, right? But you could get, like, would a Punk come in and do that? Would a Roman come in? Whatever. Like, where do all of these other pieces kind of fall in this whole storyline? This is just so exciting to see where this goes. Because, like, last year, we all knew what direction we wanted it to go in. And that was Cody finishing the story. And then we got taken on what was ultimately a very fun ride to that spot. Now, do people want a heel champion in John Cena? Do we want Cody to vanquish this? Do we want this to go on? Like, there isn't a very clear and obvious whatever. There's a lot of different ways that this could go leading into WrestleMania. So just so excited to see where all of this ends up going. But that was just one part of Elimination Chamber. Didn't get to a whole lot of this on the Instant Reaction stream yesterday. So I want to touch on these now. The Women's Chamber getting a little overshadowed. I thought everyone really stepped up in this match. And now, for a lot of this, the crowd sounded a little bit out of things. But you do recall, like a lot of other shows at the Rogers Center, it is really set up in a way that the sound goes up, right? And that is the thing with big arena shows, is that like none of these places are designed for the sound to come right down to the stage. Where, like, again, hockey rinks and stuff like that, like there isn't a lot of room for the sound to go. So it in the arena, it sounds loud. On the TV, though, given how the microphones are set up and everything like that, it is a bit of a different viewing experience. And so I do think that some of the bit of a muted crowd reaction might just be because of the venue. But it did seem like the crowd was a little bit quiet for it. But still, I thought everyone really stepped up. I thought Bayley and Roxy, that was really solid. And I'm still excited and hopeful that turns into a WrestleMania feud, as they haven't really had their big singles blow off type of a match just yet. And so, like, the move where Bayley rolls to the outside and rakes Roxy's hands on the cage just so that she can get away from that crossface, and then Roxy turns it into just ramming her face into it, I thought was just so well done by both on that one. And then I really like, from Roxy's perspective, it took 3 wrestlers to put her out of that match, right? Like, she gets hit on the outside, she tries to come in, eats a super kick, eats a thing, and then another thing, and then she's out. I thought, like, really showing, like, that this is a strong performer, that it's going to take a little bit of work to get out of this match. And so I thought they built that one up very effectively. Jade coming down and attacking Naomi right at the beginning of this whole situation was, I think, really effective. And now again, with Bianca then winning the match and getting the #1 contender spot, how does this factor into everything now? Where does this kind of fall in with the whole storyline? I'm excited to see what direction they go with that one as well. I think there are a few ways to go. You could have, like we kind of talked about last night, where you have Bianca say, no, I sent Naomi after you. You weren't cutting it. We were going to be losing. You were taking the spotlight, blah, 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 blah. And that turns into eventually maybe even a 4-way featuring the champion. Or it is just a Bianca or it's just a Naomi Jade thing, or we get a 2-night thing. Again, there's a few different ways that you can go with that. And again, most of them are interesting. And at the end, with the face-off and Io coming out and getting involved, like, that got me excited as well. Like, if you just did a triple threat with those three, and it is, you have Rhea, Io, and Bianca in a triple threat match at WrestleMania, sign me up. I think that would be incredible. Or you do a WrestleMania 10 and there's some kind of a whatever. I guess having another qualifying for Bianca after going through all of that doesn't seem fair. So that one maybe doesn't work for this particular storyline. But I do think that there is a lot to be excited about around the women's division right now. And I just think a lot of the ways you go are fantastic. And maybe there's even the Jade Naomi thing is just its own thing. And Bianca is kind of, Naomi, how could you? And then night after WrestleMania, we get the turn, and it was Bianca all along, or something along those lines, right? Like, I keep thinking, like, okay, and all of this gets solved by WrestleMania, but there's a night after, and then a whole year, and scores of them, actually. So there's a lot of your mind just goes, and then to Mania, and then after that, I don't know, but Mania, there's going to be life after Mania, and we're going to have storylines to go with that as well. I thought Liv Morgan was fantastic in this match. I think the work that they put in with her and the work that she has put in this year have really paid off. And this is, like, we talk about this a little bit when we do the booking to Mania thing, specifically, like, coming out of WrestleMania, when you have a year. It's like, what are your projects? And obviously, the project for the WWE after WrestleMania was Liv Morgan. And that has paid off in a very big time way. And then obviously, like, one of the other ones was Gunther coming out, and that one paid off. And so this year, I think there are going to be a few, and we'll look at that as time goes on. But it paid off massively with Liv Morgan in that particular situation. Alexa Bliss being back is just so much fun. She gets her character so well, and she puts so much into that, and she's an amazing performer and everything. I'm excited to see where she kind of goes with this and what role they have for her now at WrestleMania. But we'll see what happens tonight with the championship match on Monday Night Raw. The women's champion on SmackDown getting into the fun as Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus took on Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. This match was what it was supposed to be. It wasn't the biggest match on the show or anything like that, but Trish looked great from an in-ring standpoint and just from I am a human being with eyeballs standpoint. Tiffany Stratton shined, I thought, in this match. Nia was the good heel she needed to, and Candice LeRae had some fun spots as well. And so now, like, Trish, I can't imagine she came back for one show right before WrestleMania. I feel like there is something with Trish here. Now, her against Nia, that might be asking a lot, given some of the concerns that come with wrestling a Nia Jax over the years. But you could tell a very good kind of David and Goliath story with that one. Personally, though, like, I think having Trish with Tiffany as kind of a mentor would actually be really nice. And, like, it doesn't get her, maybe you get her in a match against Nia Jax in night 1, and night 2 she is with Tiffany Stratton, or you just stick with Tiffany through the build, because this is really Tiffany's first run as a babyface, and she just happens to be doing it in a title match with Charlotte Flair, probably the most famous woman on the roster, going into WrestleMania. So that's a lot to take on as your first babyface kind of a thing, as you're learning what you are as this character and trying to fit in the, hey, I'm awesome to look at, really athletic, and have this catchphrase that really worked as a heel. But now, how do we tie in these things as babyface without it seeming like you're just kind of a dick? So I think Trish, who was familiar with all of those different scenarios, would be a very good mentor, not only just from a character standpoint, but from a real life standpoint of having her be around and helping out in this build as well. I think that would be a very interesting way to kind of utilize Trish as a bit of a mentor going into Mania season. And then you could even do a heel turn with one of them and a program coming out of WrestleMania. I think there's some ways to go with that. But I think keeping Trish around and helping out a Tiffany Stratton actually makes a lot of sense to me to kind of help Tiffany get her bearings as a babyface character there. Kevin Owens against Sami Zayn in the unsanctioned match. It was what we thought it was going to be. It was a lot of moves that looked like they hurt a real lot, and just a crazy brawl street fight thing. I do think AEW has kind of raise the bar a little bit when it comes to these all violence matches, but by WWE standards, this was great. Quiet crowd again, and I think part of that was, again, just how the Rogers Center is built. It's very cavernous, but also like it's Canada, and both these guys love both these guys loved by the crowd, and so it was always going to be tough to get the crowd reactions that you kind of desired coming out of this one. But some just otherworldly violence, and you get Kevin Owens in there to continue to build things up, and now Randy Orton comes back, setting up what should be a phenomenal build for WrestleMania. I'm a little worried that Sammy gets forgotten going into Mania now, because it does kind of feel like he doesn't really have a whole lot on the go, and like, does he just tie in with this Cody thing? And it's Sammy and Cody against Rock and John Cena. That, I mean, it's we were talking about Stone Cold yesterday, so that feels like maybe a touch of a step down, but it would be an amazing spot for a Sami Zayn to put him in that kind of a thing, and I think he would fit quite well with that sort of a story. But I just, again, the different ways you could go storytelling-wise with John Cena as a heel, with The Rock, against Cody, and with everything that went on with the Bloodline in the years leading up to it, would be spectacular. Again, so very interested to see where, again, all of that goes. But I hope that there's a bit more for Sammy than a Karrion Kross feud. And honestly, like, I like Karrion Kross. I think he is a very underrated performer. And I think his character work is just chef's kiss, no notes. But it is a little underwhelming for a Sami Zayn feud for WrestleMania, right? So, like, if he was the night after WrestleMania feud, then fine. But it's just, for this particular time of year, I want a little bit more for Sami Zayn. And then the men's chamber match, it was more than just John Cena turning. Like, the Priest-Drew stuff, I think was really great again. I think they did a really good job in this match of weaving all the stories together. And they kind of showed that in the video package where they went to one guy, and then to another guy, and then another guy, and it was all kind of tying in with everything they had going on there. So I thought that was quite effective with what they did with Priest and with Drew. The Punk Rollins stuff gets taken to another level. Where does Roman fit in with all of this? Does it all tie in with the Rock situation? We will see how that goes. But obviously there is something Seth and Punk going on. And like, that was such a... Again, this is where I don't think WWE gets enough credit, because they're doing all these things live. And like, lucky enough in my career that I've been able to go to a movie shoot, and like you go there, and I didn't realize this, but you talk to them and it's like, so how long are you guys here? And oh, like weeks, months, whatever. It's like, man, that's a long time. I'm like, yeah. So what are we getting done today? And they said, well, we're gonna get this page done. Pardon? Because there's a lot of whatever. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna be here for about 8 hours, and we're gonna get about 16 minutes done today, because it's just, okay, you have this thing, but now we have to stop, everyone shut up, and we're going to go to a different camera angle, and we're going to shoot it from this one spot, so we get this one shot, and we're going to go with it that way. And obviously, they're movies. They perfect this. Movies are quite entertaining. I'm not shitting on movies or anything like that, but WWE doesn't have that. They're doing all of this live. And you have a general idea of what is going to happen, obviously, but you still have human beings in a fucking steel structure that you have to get everything perfect. And this was perfect. It is a shot of Punk, and just looks like it's a great shot. And it looks like they're kind of trying to tee up the WrestleMania thing. And then a fucking boot comes out of the air and drives this guy's brain into the steel. And that leads to a finish. That was just, it was art. And WWE doesn't get nearly enough credit for all of that. A couple of notes here. I meant to mention this in the Sami Zayn part, but mentioning it again here. I am a big Pat McAfee fan. I think McAfee had a rough night. I think that, like, he brings so much energy and he brings so much enthusiasm, and a lot of his lines, like, popped my wife. But I just feel like this was an event that needed to be taken just a beat more seriously than what he was doing. And so a lot of the jokes just kind of felt like they were taking away from some really serious moments in there. And so you don't want to neuter this guy, because 99 times out of 100, that's the craziest thing that's ever been said in the history of saying things, is an amazing line. And I'm probably going to steal it at some point. But for that situation where you have something that has been building for 20 years, I don't know if that's the line we want to remember. Like, that's... It's not the Hulk Hogan, you can burn in hell, or one of the God is my witness, he is broken in half. It's not one of those things, right? And so I don't know if you were ever going to get that, but it did kind of feel like it just, a lot of moments tonight not that you fully took away from them. Like, we're not going to look at the John Cena heel turn as a bad moment because Pat McAfee's cracking wise. But I do think that you could have added to the seriousness of the situation if he was just a little bit more serious in that moment. So a little bit of reading the room would have been good. Another part of this, right now, I don't fully know where Logan Paul fits in. And for a bit, it was fine to have the celebrity involvement and the Logan Paul involvement and stuff like that when you have a good roster and a few good stories, but you need a bit of a boost. I don't think you need a boost. Like, this is a stacked main event scene on Raw. The pretty stacked main event scene over on SmackDown. And a lot of very interesting stories that it just kind of feels like now it's, and Logan Paul. Like, he doesn't feel like the big thing or a big attraction on this show. Like, he feels like a guy who is going to start the show right now. And it feels like having him as a full-timer, I'm sure helps with views and social media things and all of those sorts of things. But I just like going into now the show of shows, WrestleMania, you have so many interesting storylines and so many great performers that, I mean, it would get them a spotlight. For sure it would get them a spotlight. It's kind of the Shane McMahon thing from a few years ago where I remember on Combat Central, G and I were talking about like, man, it was AJ Styles against Shane McMahon. Like, I wish for a better thing for AJ Styles. Like, what better thing? This is them showing that they are fully into AJ Styles. It's like, yeah, but it's not, he's just not one of the guys you want to see at the top of the thing. So it was more an anti-Shane thing than they hate this guy. And so I think it's going to be the same thing. Like, whoever gets the Logan Paul match, that is going to be a big match in the eyes of the WWE, but it just feels like I kind of wish he was wrestling someone else, almost regardless of who gets into that particular spot. And now, so for tonight, the push for WrestleMania is on. We have to get some kind of a follow-up to it. And I don't just want a video package. I don't just want The Rock from his cell phone. You can do some of those things, but someone needs to be in that ring talking about what just happened. I feel like that is the big talking point, and it can't just be we are all shocked at what's happened. Here's the video, and we have an update. Cody Rhodes has a lacerated whatever the fuck. This needs to be someone comes out in the middle of the ring and yells at someone. That just needs to be the big thing tonight. So I feel like we really do need some progression on this one very, very quickly. I'm so interested at what the presentation of a John Cena is going to be as well. Like, I feel like it would be cool if he came out to the Doctor of Thugonomics music, but I also think that would get a babyface reaction, and you don't want that anywhere near John Cena right now. So maybe he had another rap song that you could maybe work a little bit. I mean, we know people can boo his song, but like, does he come out? And I think it would be so funny if he wrestled in like tights or a singlet or something like that. Like, just goes all the way away from the character that he was before. He stoically walks to the ring and he is wearing like Stone Cold Steve Austin trunks, or he's wearing like the Kurt Angle singlet or something like that. Like, just everything is different from what he was before. I think that would be a really fun utilization of things. But I mean, like, it's crazy right now to think that we have, we're working on a heel New Day and a heel John Cena at the same time. It's just wild to me. The old tights that he wore for his Angles match, for his Angle match deeds. That would be, yes, do that. 100%. Bring all that back. That would be good. And honestly, like the spot in the back here, maybe going a little bit. You saw like the NWO meme with that there. Let's go full like straight edge society and just shave his head. That I'm giving unto The Rock my hair for some reason. But that would be kind of funny too. Like, just take away everything that made John Cena and put together this weird package that no one wants and just make it that much more heelish. That would be something you do on a video game. That might be a bit of a stretch for a guy who wants to make a movie career after this one. Also, I want to see a little bit more pushed with Penta. We're probably going to have to finish up things with Ludwig Kaiser, but I am really hoping that Penta gets roped in with Rey Mysterio in this thing against the New Day and just kind of give him that platform going into WrestleMania season. So I'm wondering if we get a little bit more on that tonight, but we still have like over a month until we get to WrestleMania. I do want a little bit of advancement in the Intercontinental title picture as well. It does seem like, obviously, Braun Breaker with AJ Styles is at least part of the direction. Finn Balor seems to have maybe been working his way into that as well. And I think having a Sheamus in that neighborhood would be kind of fun, and have him build toward a career Grand Slam at WrestleMania. And then Sheamus could pin Finn for the IC title, and you can move Braun Breaker into the championship fold coming out of WrestleMania as well. Like I think that there are ways that you can do that, but I think it would be kind of fun to maybe have it go that way. Also, I want some story around the women's Intercontinental title. I wonder if Ivy Nile just wins it tonight. But this can't be another women's belt that the only way we are building it up is we just have a bunch of matches, and hopefully eventually you get invested in some. We need some actual story around some of these now. So I hope we get a little bit more out of that tonight. And we're also getting a tag team title match with the War Raiders taking on the Creed brothers. I think there's a fun story you could tell with Chad Gable's push to get help with Lucha, and then his demands for titles when he comes back. I think there's a fun story you could tell there, win or lose with those guys. So yeah, should be a noteworthy episode of Raw tonight. Deeds in the chat, have the Rock's music drop when Cena walks out. Yeah, like have a just having him have the Rock's music. Also, that the kind of remix of the if you smell what the Rock is cooking and then Fiend hits, oh, that slapped. Or whatever the kids would say these days. But I mean, we talked about it on the instant reaction, the aura of the Rock walking up those steps, and he's just jacked coming out. And Toxic, personally, I didn't think Travis Scott added anything to the story. That is very fair. Him being there, like him saging the ring after Cody told the Rock to go fuck himself was really funny. But aside from that, like it was a photo op thing. I do wonder if he comes in as like a manager or something, and like plays the Rock down to the ring like Limp Bizkit did at WrestleMania 19, which will be the last Travis Scott Limp Bizkit comparison for a bit. But I do wonder if you get that sort of a thing coming up at WrestleMania. But I just feel like he was there for a reason. I don't think he's going to wrestle or anything like that, but I do think he was there for a reason. So a lot of big things happening in the world of the WWE. AEW is going to try to keep up, and this is a tough time to try to keep up, but they're doing their darndest as AEW gets ready for Revolution this weekend. Let's take a look at some of the early stories that we're going to keep an eye on going into the big event as we do just a quick tee-up before Sunday's pay-per-view. While the WWE is making big moves with their biggest stars, AEW is just trying to build some momentum, and the next spot for them to do that is Revolution this weekend. A lot of talk about AEW over the last number of weeks and months, certainly a lot of talk on this program as well. I think AEW, like I said, I think they're building some momentum, and I think there's a lot of fun that is being had right now, and one thing you know is they always deliver on pay-per-view. At the top, the Cope Moxley storyline is finally starting to ramp up a little bit towards this weekend, with Copeland actually building some momentum. And you get Willow with the concerto on Marina Shafir. That's a great spot for Willow, and a great place to be in going into maybe a feud there with Marina. And having Mox be a little vulnerable finally for the first time. I'm not sure this is the time to take it off of Moxley. It's weird to say that because, like, this storyline has not gone anywhere, really, and has not really progressed, and is actually a big turnoff for a lot of people. And so it is weird to say, well, you can't stop it now. I don't know if Cope is the guy to do it. Just because of like how anti-AEW it has been. Like, I feel like it does feel like it is building up to an Omega or an Ospreay to get control of AEW back. And so I feel like this would be, while it has been unsatisfactory so far, I think it would be a waste of some real dull months to just bail on it now before you get to what could be an ultimate big payoff of Will Ospreay winning and having like the Lex Luger, this is our night moment at an All-In or something like that. Like, I think you can kind of ramp back up with this and have it really be a Death Riders v AEW thing in a very special way. Like, I think there is something there. They just haven't got to it yet, but I think you are close enough to it that you can't just bail now, if that makes sense. Just because Christian has a briefcase, you know? So, interested to see where that one goes. The rest of the card, though, looks amazing right now. Like, Ospreay and Fletcher in a steel cage match alone is unbelievable. Like, it's a punchline in wrestling sometimes, but main event anywhere in the country. Like, that's just going to be spectacular. And Omega against Takeshita for the International Championship. I would presume Omega wins this one, and then he gets Okada at All In, and you do kind of a title for title thing there. So I think I think this match is going to be one that is just otherworldly. Think Omega Gabe Kidd at Wrestle Dynasty out there. MJF against Hangman Adam Page is going to be so good. Like the build up to this has been excellent and has been exactly what you needed it to be. And so you have a very solid foundation to put together a match on, and probably a feud that will continue beyond that. Swerve and Ricochet, the added touch of it being a number one contenders match, just so Swerve gets another opportunity at Ricochet. It leaves some doubt as to who is going to win, especially with Nana giving his kind of pump-up speech to Swerve and just kind of seeing, like, just kind of being like, hey, we kind of got to get this thing rolling again. And so it leads to, like, is Swerve going to get it back? But then it does feel like the winner of this is just kind of setting up to lose en route to Ospreay getting an opportunity at the title. So what direction they go with any of these guys makes for a lot of very interesting discussions. And so that is the one thing, is that AEW, for a bit, like, there was no story that you really could sink your teeth into. And at least now you can see how that they're starting to branch everything out again. And a lot of different webs are being spun, and it can make a lot of sense. So you're just hoping that there's some strong follow through with a lot of those things. Mercedes Moné against Momo Watanabe is damn close to a dream match. That's going to be so much fun to see those two kind of women's wrestling legends go at it. And then Toni Storm against Mariah May could reach another level after a good Mariah May attack on Collision. So, like, this show is stacked right now. And when you look at it, there are, I would say, 7 of the 9 matches could be main event level ones. The Hurt Business against the Outriders, probably not. And the opening multi-person tag with a conglomeration, whatever, no. But aside from that, everything I just talked about could main event a wrestling pay-per-view, and I would pay my slightly hard-earned money to go out and watch it. So, yeah. Excellent card that has been built. AEW always delivers on pay-per-view. It is just the build up to it that sometimes is lacking, and the follow-through that is a little lacking. The build up to this has started to hit a stride that AEW hasn't hit in a while, so very excited to see what the conclusion is for that. Let's move into the world of boxing, as we kind of did a reaction show for Tank against Roach on Sunday, but still have a little bit more to break down from this one. So let's go back to Saturday night and the boxing pay-per-view that sparked quite a bit of controversy with Tank Davis taking on Lamont Roach Jr. It was supposed to be the fight that got us to the next fight for Tank Davis. Instead, it is the fight that maybe got us the next contender in the lightweight division, as Tank Davis and Lamont Roach Jr. battled to a draw on Saturday night. This was it was not expected in any way. We didn't get to do a full preview for this fight, which is great because I would have been wrong. Like, Tank Davis, he just has the power and everything that it just felt like at some point Roach, who I said going in, like, this is a live fighter. This is not just a mandatory who's going to go in there and just get his doors blown off. This is a guy who can fight. This is a guy who can maybe give Tank a few problems. I wasn't expecting those types of problems. And it really didn't seem like Tank thought that it was going to be those kind of problems either, as he kind of got, it was a typical Tank fight, right? Like, he takes the first few rounds, downloads the information, goes out, and then just punches the fuck out of your face. And that's what the fight was supposed to be, and then eventually it was going to be a knockout. And it just never happened, because Roach fought the fight of his life. He was fantastic in this fight. He moves up in weight, he's not expected to do much in this fight, and he's going up against a pound-for-pound high-level fighter. And he hung with him so well. A phenomenal performance from Roach. And look, like, I thought he gave away a few rounds early on. I was very unimpressed with what I saw from Roach. And it's an interesting strategy, because, again, you are thinking that Tank is a guy who can just knock you out at any moment. So you don't really want to poke that bear. But you also have rounds to win. And Tank was doing just enough in these first few rounds that he was able to build up a lot on the scorecard so that it felt like it was going to be just a runaway. Like, this was the time you're supposed to do it. But Roach didn't want to get Tank to really get rolling early and have that early knockout. Like, he wanted to try to hang around for as long as he could. And I just thought if he would have done, like I said the other night, he was probably 3 punches away from winning 3 extra rounds. Like, all of these were very close, and it was just, well, Tank was kind of the one coming forward, so when he landed, it looked good. So you'll give it to Tank. But if Roach had done just a little bit more behind a very quick jab, or a couple of those jabs just ended with another right, then maybe that's enough to get him that round. But it felt like they were trying to walk the fine line of, let's stay competitive, but let's stay in this fight as long as possible before that guy really starts to wake up. But the thing is, once Tank woke up, Roach was right there with him. And that was so fascinating to watch, because no one's ever really been able to hang with Tank in that way anyway before. The problem for Roach is that when, like, Tank was landing big, he was winning. And that sounds very simplistic, but like when Roach was landing big, Tank was still winning because he was just landing a couple of bigger shots each round that was allowing him to continue to bank up some of these ones as well. And obviously it was a close fight. It was a draw. And I had it 115-113 on my scorecard. So that there was obviously like a lot there in this bout, and a lot of like just a little thing here, a little thing there, maybe changes it up. But it just felt like in a lot of rounds that could have been swing rounds, Tank just landed a couple more big shots that allowed him to bank a couple more of those big ones that on my scorecard ended up getting him a win, on one judge's scorecard ended up getting him a win, and on another one allowed him to keep his belt because it was a draw. But yeah, like Roach, I fell in love with the hand speed. I love that he was able to kind of out-counter the counter-puncher and put together some very good exchanges in that. With the hand speed, again, that he had, the accuracy that he had was really good. And his counter-punching style, it seemed like it was frustrating Tank at some point. Like, you get a couple moments where they're trash-talking each other. And Tank's corner was excited about that. Like, hey, you're taking this guy out of his game. But then, like, Tank's like yelling at the referee, and he's yelling at his corner at different points. Like, I think at some point Tank thought this was going to be a couple big punches and I'm out of here with a payday, and it just wasn't that. It was a 12-round battle between these two. One of the issues with Roach that maybe he would want to correct, and the counter punching, it does change up the defensive game plan a little bit, but he was really hittable in this one. Like, I did not love the defensive shell of Roach even a little bit in this fight. And so that's something you would like to see him tighten up going into another bout here with Tank Davis, which we'll get to in a second, but that seems like maybe that's the direction it might go. But like Tank's power, fantastic. Hand speed, fantastic. Roach did seem to have an answer for almost everything, but Tank's responses were just a little bit more impactful. Like, this fight was more about what Roach did than what Tank didn't do. And normally if you have a guy who is that big of a favorite, it is basically well, where did you go wrong when the fight ends up being a majority draw. But I don't think that was the case here. I think Tank fought a really good fight. He just wasn't expecting Roach to be as competitive as he was, and it ended up that Tank maybe let a couple of rounds get away and wasn't able to put the finishing touches on it. But again, everything about Tank is still Tank. He still has that power that is game-changing. He still has that incredible accuracy and the incredible speed when he really does get things ramping up a little bit more. But Roach, it just seemed like he had an answer for almost everything that Tank was doing, which makes the draw not a bad scorecard in the end. Again, it was not a night without controversy, as in the 9th round, Roach lands a punch, and then Tank drops to a knee. Any other time, that's a knockdown. But the referee doesn't call it a knockdown because, oh, yeah, Tank, I know you had something in your eye. Like, what? If I'm Roach's camp, I'm furious that happened. Because, like, a win there, I'm assuming there is some kind of a automatic rematch, whatever. And you get another probably huge payday out of that sort of a thing. And a knockdown there, obviously, like, it wins him every card. If you get a knockdown, I guess well, yeah, it would, because it would basically be a 3-point swing, right? Because Tank comes back, and I think he won that round. And so it goes from being a 10-9 loss to a 10-8 win if you count that knockdown, which you probably should. And again, he wasn't knocked down. He took a knee on his own so he could wipe some stuff out of his eyes, but also you're in a fight, and you have to know that looks like you are knocked down. So it was such a unique set of circumstances that created a lot of controversy coming out of that particular thing. So I can understand where Roaches would be a little pissed coming out of that. I can also understand, like, it wasn't an actual knockdown. It was crazy in the moment to see how that whole thing kind of played out. Coming up later on this week on wherever you are consuming this, we are going to do fights to make coming off of this one. But I think it is worth at least having a bit of a discussion right now, because Roach, like, he is obviously worthy of another opportunity at Tank, but it was also obvious that Tank had eyes for Shakur Stevenson, tweeting out, what was it, like LOL or something, after Shakur's fight with Padley, where he was a significant favorite, coming off of a late replacement there. I think you might get a little bit bailed out if you are Roach, because Shakur is dealing with a hand injury right now. Like, the only fight that Tank should take ahead of Roach is a fight with Shakur Stevenson. If that's not going to happen, then I think you have to do this rematch and just have a little bit more finality to this one. If Roach doesn't get this championship fight with Tank Davis, there are two other champions in the weight class that he could go after, and I think he has earned an opportunity in at least one of those again. And then maybe you bring it back around. He goes off, beats whoever you want to put him in there with, wins championship X, and now you have not an undisputed fight, but at least a unification bout, and you can start to set up a couple other big time sort of fights. So Roach has worked his way into a conversation that not a lot of people would have had pegged for him at different points here in the year. So a star-making night almost for Lamont Roach Jr., and one where Tank Davis still looked really good. It was just a very, very good fight. Okay, this marathon stream is one segment away from being done. Let's take a look now. It is the UFC coming out with another pay-per-view this weekend. It is not the grandest of pay-per-views, but there is an intriguing fight at the top of this one, as Alex Pereira is defending his championship. So let's dive in and take our first look at UFC 313. UFC 313 goes down this weekend from T-Mobile Arena in Paradise, Nevada, more commonly referred to as Las Vegas. In the main event, it is Alex Pereira, pound for pound top fighter, taking on Magomed Ankalaev for the light heavyweight championship, and a former lightweight champion returns in the co-main event. So, should be an interesting fight. What are we looking for here in our first look at UFC 313? Yes, Toxic, almost 3 hours. Yeah, this is a long one today, and probably, you know what? Could have planned it better, because I'm going to be doing 2 hours of radio in 5.5 hours. So hitting the tee, hitting the halls pretty hard after this one here. So no video game stream today. But UFC 313. Pereira, this is a really... I've used this word too much tonight. It's a fascinating fight, because he is a pound-for-pound king. I have him pound-for-pound number 2 right now in my rankings. He has fought some big names, but this is his toughest test. Ankalaev is the type of style matchup that we all assume will give Pereira some fits. Like, he is the type of a grinder that you think a guy who comes from a kickboxing background would have some problems with. So when you look at the resume of a Pereira, like, you look at, obviously, like Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland, Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prochazka, champions all around. Jamal Hill, Prochazka again. Maybe not Khalil Roundtree, but like, you have a bunch of guys who are former champions. And so if we were to do a light heavyweight tournament, I don't know if Ankalaev is coming out of that with a win necessarily. But because he has this style that Pereira hasn't really had to deal with before in this run, in the meteoric run in mixed martial arts, that it is one that presents the most questions for him, and one that is a very interesting challenge for Pereira. So with so much potential in Pereira's future, this is a really bold fight for him to take, and a really dangerous opponent. On the other hand, if he is able to pass this test and come away again as a 205-pound champion, one more time, the sky is the limit for opportunities that Pereira could get coming up in 2025. But he is taking on a guy who has a very real chance in Magomed Ankalaev, who is coming into this one at 19-1-1 with one no contest. He had the opportunity for the title in 2022, fighting for the vacant championship, and then it was a draw. He goes off, fights Johnny Walker. There's an illegal knee. Walker's not able to continue, so we have to do that fight again. He beats Walker, beats Rakic in convincing fashion at UFC 308, setting him up for a title opportunity. But it felt like he was right there for a title chance, couldn't quite do it against Blachowicz, maybe wasn't quite ready for that chance, but now he feels like he is ready for this title opportunity. So he is deserving of a title chance. He does get a little bit lost in the shuffle at times, but I do think that, again, his skill set and the resume and the build up to this fight means that this is a very game and very dangerous challenger coming up on Saturday night. The other story around this is that there have been big changes to the co-main event. Dan Hooker is out, and you get Fiziev in there with a rematch. Rafael Fiziev and Justin Gaethje will do the dance again in the lightweight division. And so now you have... you go from, okay, this is an intriguing fight, to, oh, there are stories here. Fiziev, he lost, when these guys fought, Fiziev on a bit of a roll, right? We were talking about, okay, this is the type of, all-action fighter in a fight against Gaethje. He's coming off some good wins, like Moicano, that's a good, Bobby Green, that's a good win. Rafael dos Anjos, not the win that it was probably 5 years ago, but that's still a good win back in 2022. And now he's going into this huge fight on a huge stage, pay-per-view against Justin Gaethje, and he loses. And so that just stopped a lot of the momentum that he had, where he went from exciting upstart prospect to, maybe there's a ceiling here. And then it gets doubled up on because his next fight, he fights Mateusz Gamrot, and he injures his knee in that fight and hasn't fought since. There was supposed to be a rematch that never officially happened, and now he checks in here on very late notice for this fight. And so you have a guy who hasn't fought since September of 2023, who hasn't won since July of 2022, and all of a sudden, this is a fight for his career. It kind of feels like. I don't think they'll cut him if he loses to Justin Gaethje. A lot of people lose to Justin Gaethje. But I think that, again, that upward trajectory going toward a title opportunity, that pretty well gets stopped. And for Gaethje, he has lost before, right? He has come off of losses at different times in his career. I would suggest no one's lost like that before, where you were a favorite coming in, you got pieced up for 5 rounds, and then with a second left, you were on the receiving end of one of the most badass otherworldly knockouts in the history of the sport. By the way, at UFC 300, probably the most stacked card in the history of ever. And it is it was a stacked card top to bottom, and it was the defining highlight of the entire night, was you getting knocked out. That, at 36, is a tough one to come back from. So we will see what is Justin Gaethje's mental state, because he has always come back and he has always been in high action fights. But that, not to sound too dramatic or whatever, but that has to change a guy a little bit, right? So what does Gaethje look like coming back and coming off of an all-time bad loss, going up against a guy who is desperate in this fight to not lose 3 in a row? So a lot of very interesting stories going into UFC 313. More UFC 313 coverage as the week goes on, as we will look at the undercard fighters to watch on this card, and then coming up later on in the week as well, a full preview for at least the main card for UFC 313. That is going to do it. As Toxic said before, long one here today, coming in at 2 hours and 37 minutes basically on the stream. Now the first part of that, we just had the music playing while I got everything set up in here, but still a nice fun one today. If you are joining us in podcast form, this might be like the 4th podcast you hear coming off of this stream, but either way, if you're listening in podcast or you are watching on YouTube, you can get these early on twitch.tv/primetimepk or over at kick.com/primetimepk. Some live streams are coming to YouTube, probably coming up in April as we get ready for hockey playoffs, ramping up a WrestleMania season, and I'll be fresh off of a 3-week vacation off in Japan. So yes, thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for that great Calgary swag, and check out Swift Energy. Use the code PKPrimetime when you go to swiftenergy.gg. Get 25% off. Look, I just did a 3-hour stream where I'm just talking to a camera. You guys in the chat were awesome, giving me a few things to talk about as well. But I think we can agree that if nothing else, the energy was there. So check out swiftenergy.gg for a bit of a boost when it comes to that part of the world. If you want more from me, I don't know how you could, but if you do, check me out on Sportsnet 960 The Fan tonight. I'm going to be there from 6 to 8 on Sportsnet tonight. So very excited about that. And then I'm going to be back on Sportsnet today, coming up at noon Mountain Time on Tuesday. It's an early Flames game, so everything gets pushed up a little bit. So there isn't going to be an early stream on here tomorrow. Probably going to do a bit of a later one. Probably, like, I'll get home around 3, so probably do a stream around 4 o'clock then. So we will do that. And lovely, T. Higgins franchise tagged. So as this was going on, part of the podcast portion of it gets made a little bit irrelevant. So don't love that, but whatever. Thank you guys so much for hanging out on this marathon today. Follow me on social media at PrimetimeKlein, and I'll chat with you guys on stream, probably coming up tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day.